Okay, you guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeneth Blackert, and today we are talking with Christine Volton, and we are talking about channeling Sirius B to unearth some of your trauma, some of your inherited empathicness, and some probably receiving and abundance. So we just loved Christine from the last summit that we had, and we thought we would invite her back to the next one. And instead, we get this bonus right here in the middle where Christine is joining us, and we're really excited to have her. Just a little bit of note, you might notice that Lianka is represented by these beautiful flowers. She spent all night in the hospital with her grandma because she's got a really big heart, and she still expected to show up today. And I said, no, you better rest. We need to take care of ourselves. So that's where Lianka has fallen into the land of the beautiful roses and flowers that we have here. So I'm just going to jump on in and get started today with Christine. I'm going to go ahead and pin her up. And I want you, as we start talking about some of these water planets, some of this channeling work, some of this, ways for us to heal, I want you to think about what question that you might have for Christine, because I'd like to take a lot of callers. On our last show, you notice she's really fast at really hunting down the frequency and hunting down a way to get you moving forward in your life. So as we do that, just go ahead and think of your question. Christine, welcome.
Thanks. Great
How
to be
are
here.
you?
And sorry I joined a couple minutes late. For some reason, the link was not working, but great to be here. Mercury retrograde and all that fun stuff.
No, you're fabulous. Uh, I was listening to our previous interview in preparation for this one, and you blew my mind. And it really
Oh,
got
thank
me
you.
thinking about chakras and your work with receiving. I mean, every single one of our chakras requires that kind of contribution of both gifting and receiving. And if one is lacking, and some people call it like giving and receiving, and I actually like calling it a contribution, meaning it's a simultaneous response. And as I was listening to your call, I was like, wow, she really gets this, especially through our
Yeah.
chakra system.
Mhm.
So I wanted to start there, and I also feel like maybe within this, you can share a little bit about how you came along to this work as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It does hit like every chakra, right? And I've done a lot of studies and channeling around kind of like how these different chakras work in our body. The lower chakras are very much, the first, second, and third are very much body chakras, but we are, a spirit in a body in this planet. So if we want to manifest or give or receive, right, we want to do it here in this body, then
Yeah.
those lower chakras are important. And then our upper chakras really are our connection, right, to like divine source, right? And then our fourth chakra, which is obviously our heart chakra, right in the middle, kind of connects them. They connect, the spirit and the body together. So
Mm.
you're very right in that, these are all connected and they're all really important. The last workshop that I did after the summit that we did together was about receiving, and I really focused on the heart chakra, but it is very much about like working with all of them. But I always say like to concentrate on the fourth really helps open you up to giving and receiving. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. So in this conversation, we want to talk a little bit about some of those empathic frequencies. And
Hmm.
I know that there are specific chakras that you probably want to hone in on with this conversation, but it really made me think that every single place in every one of our chakras, there would be an empathic component because of the way that we receive through the multidimensional field.
Sure.
Want to
Yeah,
talk a
yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love talking about empaths. I mean, just raise your hand or put in the chat if you identify as an empath. And I would
I
guess
think everyone
Yeah,
has
I would guess
that,
most
right?
people, especially who are drawn to this type of spiritual or psychic work, most people are empaths. Now, of course, our second chakra is clairsentience, feeling the emotion of others. So that a lot of times shows up if you're an empath. And when I do readings for people, I see it all the time that, people either have courting there or their second is like so open and is just taking in everything. And there are gifts there, absolutely. But there's also obviously challenges, right? Like when you're feeling everyone's emotions or you're highly sensitive, it makes things difficult if you don't have tools to understand that. And that's one of the things I really focus on teaching are tools that you can use to manage things like feeling other people's energy, which I hear so often. And there's simple visualization tools that I use. But the other thing that I've really seen with empaths is that they tend to be very open in their upper chakras, right? Like the fifth, sixth, and seventh, like the throat
Yeah.
chakra, right? Their third eye and their seventh chakra, which is their crown chakra. They tend to be very open, which is really interesting. It's just like kind of a theme that I've noticed in doing readings for people, because when we're so open in those places, a lot of things can happen. We can let a lot of different beings into our bodies, right? And sometimes it's very conscious, and sometimes it's, you don't know why. You feel kind of like overwhelmed, or you feel like you have a lot of anxiety, right? A lot of times that's because you're taking in so much information on your sixth or seventh. So that could be a reason. But again, like, right, there's tools that you can manage this, but that's kind of like one of the things that I've noticed working with empaths. And that's kind of, it's always,
Yeah.
I always find like it's hard, a lot of it, like I identify as an introvert. A lot of empaths also consider themselves introverts. And I really feel like the reason for that is because we're so overwhelmed with energy that we're kind of like, hey, like, give me a little like space, right?
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
that's how I felt when I was
But
growing up. I was like
I would,
terrified to even raise my hand in class because I was like, I don't want all that
yeah.
energy on me. Like now I can understand that. I didn't know why at the time, but that's literally, I was like, I don't want everybody looking at me because then I can literally feel it.
And you didn't want to be wrong. Like you
Yeah.
didn't want to ask a question and then feel like you were wrong.
Well, actually, in my case, I like would know the answer and I still didn't want to raise my hand because I felt like that was just too much for me.
Yeah.
I didn't even want
No,
the
I
attention.
I think there's so many people that can relate. And I mean, I just clearly went into this work because I was just really effed up quite a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
I like didn't know, like as far as an empath went, it was like there was so much noise in my head that
Yeah.
no angels could get a word in edgewise.
Right.
And then I just felt like I was just constantly chaotic because of the noise. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do about it. People are like, go meditate. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't even shut off the noise to meditate.
Yeah.
And I really found that with some of this energy work and steps and finding ways to know that I'm powerful enough to just simply ask and put a frequency out there to change it, that changed everything.
Yeah.
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 So
Absolutely.
I mean, let's dive into some of the tools and then I want to dive into some of this channeled work that's through Sirius B because I feel like, sometimes we get to the space in our life and, we kind of put the channeling and our guides separate. But I
Hmm.
feel like in this case, it's actually a complete oneness because they are
Yeah.
the ones that are here to really help us ascend and really here to help us grow beyond the conclusions and the way that we do life. Like we're an empath because of the quantum entanglements.
Hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
So
let you
going
go.
back now, wait, what was your first question? Now I forget because I was like, oh, now I'm thinking about all these other questions.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, let's just
Oh, I know what I
organize
was going to say.
it.
Sorry.
Right.
So I really love the point that you brought up that you were saying, I have so much noise in my head, I can't concentrate. So that I see all the time too. And it's like I see, and I think I did a reading. I always forget the readings I did. I think it was like yesterday or the day before of someone, and I could see. So that a lot of times shows up as a blocked throat chakra, right? Because there's so much noise, you can't hear your own inner voice. Right. And that's so frustrating because that's a gift we've all been given as like humans in a body. Everyone is psychic. I tell people this all
Yes.
the time. And being psychic just means you have a deep connection to your inner voice and you can hear it clearly and you can discern it. Right. And that Everybody has that ability. No
And
question.
if you practice it,
Absolutely.
it gets a lot better.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Like you all have this, just
Yes,
practice.
everybody has access to that. And that's kind of like one of my, that's really my like main purpose is to help people find that inner voice because everyone has access to it. It's just number one, like getting it, yeah, all the noise out, right? And if you're super empathic, there's a lot of noise because you're taking in everyone else's energy and like all kinds of guides are drawn to you and you can feel it, but a lot of times they're blocking that, your inner voice, right, is very much in your fifth chakra. So sometimes it's just hard to discern. You're like, is this, and I did a lot of coaching before I really dove into this psychic work because I was just really drawn to personal development and like making myself better and learning more. And I remember coaches would tell me all the time, they'd be like, well, is that your voice or is that someone else's or is that your energy and or is that someone else's? And I'm like, how the fuck do I know, right? Like how do I figure that out? And no one had an answer for me. And that was so frustrating because I was like, that's a great fucking question, but if you can't tell me how to figure it out, like what am I supposed to do? And it wasn't until I started doing psychic work and really working with energy that I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I can discern my energy versus someone else's, and I can move it out. So,
Yeah.
like a really, really simple tool that I give to people, and you can try this, and for some people, it's easier than others. But I say, like, give your own energy a color, right? Like, define yourself. Because when I do a reading, I match someone's energy and I read their higher self. And the first thing I do is I look at the color, right? How is it showing up for me? And it doesn't mean anything, right? One color doesn't mean a good or bad. It's just to give yourself definition and
Interesting.
then give everybody else's energy a different color. Or if you have specific people you're dealing with, like I with a lot of people who are going through really difficult breakups. And I'll be like, well, give that person a color because they'll be like, I can't stop thinking about them. I can't get them out of my space. I feel them all the time. I'm like, yeah, because you're an empath, right?
Mhm.
So I'll be like, give that person a color and give yourself a color. And every time you feel their energy, try to visualize it, move it out. Now, if you're naturally clairvoyant, that's really easy. A lot of people are very visual. Like I am clairvoyant, but my main psychic sense is claircognizance, which is clear knowing. And a lot of people are kind of more knowers. And that's kind of tricky because it's like we can't see it, we just know things. And it's very common to get invalidated around your knowing, right? Because people will be like, well, how do you know that? Or, I remember in work situations, people would be like, tell me the evidence of why you think we should do that. And I'd be like, yeah, I just know.
Yeah.
So with
No, I get it.
cognizance, it's a little trickier because you can still try to do the visualization, but sometimes you just know it. So you just have to really trust yourself really deeply and be like, trust that you're doing it right. Because all my knowers will be like, well, I don't know if I'm doing it right. And I'm like, just trust that you are. Your higher self is, you just give them that tool, the colors, and eventually once you trust that, you can start seeing it visually. But that's like a really simple tool.
Yeah, I know. I love that. It's so funny. I use who does this belong to?
Hmm.
And interesting point of view. They have that point of view like all the time. So it's like I know exactly who I am and who they are.
Hmm.
And I play with that like all day, every day almost. And
Right.
but I
Yeah.
kind of like bringing in the colors. I feel like that would be even less defined and less noisy in my mind. Because if I'm like this radiant opal purple
Hmm.
and everyone else is yellow,
Yeah.
and sometimes Lianka calls them like NPC players in our lives, like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
want to, yeah. So let's play a little bit with channeling and Sirius B. And why don't you introduce Sirius B to the group? I know that it's very watery and it plays a lot with Lemurian culture and
Hmm.
Atlantis and some of those other watery planets. It's funny you said something that really was that I've kind of kept playing with when I'm in the field channeling. And one of those are the water on these other planets are the same water that is on Earth.
Mm.
And that is one of our ways that we really connect with these other beings is through this element of water that also very much flows with receiving and money. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was just kind of this, when I see the Palladians, I see them all bluey and watery, like their
Hmm.
whole planet seems very watery. And then the
Hmm.
Arcturians, it's more a little bit like Earth, but still like an over amount of water. So
Right.
I kind of wanted to just continue the conversation. And as we bring in, tools to help with the empath, let's
Hmm.
also play with some of these tools of how the element of water can keep us more in the greater flow of these quantum entanglements.
Yeah, yeah. So let me just kind of give a little background on Sirius B. So Sirius B is a star in our system, right? I was able to connect with them through, I do a form of, I guess you would call it astral traveling, but where I traveled there at one time, and this was a class I was taking, and I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like home. Like I didn't want to leave. It was so powerful, the energy and the people, and it just felt so comfortable for me. So and then it was like probably months and months where I kept they kept coming to me in my dreams. And like when you wake up and you just start to remember, or you just remember like a little snippet of your dream and then you forget it. So that kept happening to me for like probably 6 months because they kept being like, we need you to come back because we have like some work for you to do. And I was like, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, it just felt a little bit weird to me. And I was a little freaked out. And so I kept forgetting. And then at one point, I don't know, after a while, I had this realization. I was like, I've been having this dream for months and months. And then I felt like incredibly guilty. I was like, I have told them I would go back and I've been scared. And I was like, I have to go back. And so I brought a friend with me, which was interesting because this was someone who's very new to psychic work. And I was just like, let me just see if I can bring somebody else with me to this place. And I had no idea if I actually could. And I did, and we had this amazing experience. And I've gotten so much information since then. Since then, I've started to transcribe it because I do readings and I kind of forget I kind of have this intention where I just forget most of what I see or say. So
Yeah.
I've had to start recording it.
Mhm.
But I've gotten so much great information. But basically, I work with them to do physical body healing. They do a lot of healing with sound and light. And one of the things they've told me is everything that we have, like we have everything on earth that we need to heal our bodies. 90% of our healing can be done through our minds and just our intentions and moving energy. The other 10%, we can use everything available to us on earth, water, foods, flowers, herbs, right? Like there's all of these things available to us, but
Oh,
90% of it, which is a lot, can just be done with our own minds, right? And I've done a lot of work. I'm not, and this is not subscribing to a specific religion, but I've done a lot of work with like Jesus and Christ Force energy. And what I have seen in my travels and my channeling is that the miracles that they talked about in the Bible were like legit. A lot of people think like,
sure.
oh, it was just symbolic. Like, no, he actually did those miracles. And when he said, hey, you can follow me, it wasn't like follow him as a leader. It was like, you can
Sure.
do what I do, right? All of those miracles he did, every single human can do. No question,
Yeah.
right? That's what he was saying, right? So all of those things, all of like, the things that we consider magic, all of that is very accessible. And so Sirius B, I really consider them, or what my experience with them is they are very, very accessible to all of us because they are here, like as guardians, kind of teach us a lot of that work about healing and, working with the elements and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I see them. Now, to go to your point about water, um, I absolutely agree. Well, first of all, I'm a Pisces, so I'm a super water person.
Yeah.
But even just the power of the ocean and the energy of the ocean, right? Like if you're having a bad day or you have stuck energy, I'm like, if you live on a coast or you can get to an ocean, I'm like, just go stand by it, right?
Yeah.
If you can't, just imagining that. And this is another big thing that the Syrians have taught me. Like anything that you are not able to do, like if you're physically in a bed or a wheelchair, like if you just imagine these things, they are as powerful as doing them. So you don't, you live in a city where you can't access the ocean, you can imagine it or listen to an audio or watch a YouTube, right? And it's going to be as powerful if you can visualize it.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza actually proved that,
Oh, really?
like, or well, he didn't prove it. he reads studies of that proof, like people practicing the piano in their
Oh,
mind.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
Like they do better, they do better at performances than people that actually did practice the entire time.
Yeah, professional athletes
Yeah,
do that as well. Yeah, they've known this
right.
for ages because
Like
even
the
when I was
power
in high
visualization
school,
is
yeah, I
incredible.
went to like I used to be like a springboard diver, and in diving, they tell you that too. You just vi or gymnastics, right? You
Right.
visualize it, and then yeah, they say it's equivalent to you rebuilding that neural pathway, right?
Yeah.
So that is absolutely true, and I think people apply that to yeah, like athletics or things like that. But when you think about it for healing, it's like just as powerful, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So when we ask questions about for you to channel for Sirius B,
Mhm.
and they can be in the range of anything that we're struggling with.
Yeah, you can. They
Or
can be
can you
about
just like
anything.
read my
Yeah.
energy and tell me where I might be like having a block or lacking receiving?
Oh, absolutely. And what they do is they work with me because they're like they help with certain healing stuff, and there's certain things like they're like, oh, you can help them with that. So it just depends on what it is, and that's why I love working with them because it's
Fun.
like their work is very compatible with my work, and so we work together on some stuff. Sometimes they'll come and do like specific healing. And it is interesting what you said about the water there. I never thought of that, and I about how that water is the same water. I actually maybe I did. Now I don't even remember because when I'm channeling, I don't remember. But it
Right. Well,
might
that's
be,
kind of how it plays,
yeah,
right? It's,
yeah,
that's just so funny. I'm studying money right now, like
yeah,
the really truly the energy of money and just playing and, where are my beliefs really locked up around
yep,
this,
yeah,
on all ends of it.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and what keeps coming up is this like frequency and this energy of water. And
Hmm.
then I'm like, wow, and all these water planets are talking, I feel like they're talking to me. It
Yeah.
seems like it was just the Arcturians, and then it was these Arcturian dragons, which is the main. But then now I've been accessing Palladian, I
Mhm.
access Sirius B. The last, even when we had the session last, I was like, okay, you got something. And it was such a frequency that all three of us got the same message. I can't imagine how much of the audience got the same message.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
seems that Sirius B is like so open that if you're a little bit psychic, that
Mhm.
you really can start channeling Sirius B. That's probably the simplest one to channel in some way if you have access through somebody else. I always
Sure.
feel like this is truly you've got to catch it. Like you
Yeah.
have
And
somebody
one,
else's
yeah.
frequency that has it, and then you catch it, and then you have it. It's like
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And one thing I just want to say, because I know a lot of people channel and or try to channel, and I always say, like, you really need to learn to be like not I don't want to be like warn people, but I do think it's really important that you understand and be very grounded before you start channeling. And you don't need to be able to channel to access Sirius B. That's what I think is really important too, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Anyone can
don't think
access
that you
it.
really have to be able to channel to access any of it, to be
Oh
honest.
no, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You just have to be open enough to be like, wait, this isn't my voice.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to know that you're channeling is the other thing, right? Like even if you're like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm
Agreed.
channeling, if you literally just set the intention, like, hey, I'd like to work with the Syrians for healing my physical body or to give me guidance, right? You can literally just set that intention and you can, they'll work with you in your dream space, right? So much of our healing happens in our dream space. And we sometimes remember some of it, sometimes we don't remember any of it. And
Yeah.
it's really what your conscious mind feels comfortable processing. In the beginning, it's funny, Tiffany said something about meditation, about how she could only do 2 minutes to start, and now she can go an hour and a half. I love that. I used to fall asleep in meditation instantly, or in like a yoga class during like Shavasana. I would be like out. And what I realized is I couldn't really consciously process it. I needed that time, and that's fine. So don't judge yourself if that happens. Like that's great. That means you're just processing it in your dream space. And then after, over time, now I can, stay awake and process it. And it's just that I've gotten used to it. But I went to some like show in a planetarium recently, and I literally could not keep my eyes open. It was like a meditation and a visual. And I was like, man, like I gotta be asleep to process it. And I couldn't stay awake. So
Yeah.
like sometimes we just need to do it that way. And I just want to say there's no judgment about that. And you can kind of
Funny, I
figure.
saw that when the first time I went to see the Dalai Lama, I couldn't stay awake. Like
Oh, yeah.
it was like such a strong presence that I was just
Yep.
like dude, I really want to hear all this.
And the important thing
And
is
I was
you
like,
got it anyway. You got when you're asleep, you're getting it anyway. Or if people, you're like in my readings, they're like, "Oh, I have to record it." And I'm like, "Do not worry. You're getting it no matter what. You don't have to
yeah,
remember or even be awake to get the healing. Like it will like it is always your subconscious is a supercomputer. It picks up everything and it's always there when you need it. So all
yeah,
that stuff, you
it-
you took in, but yeah, sometimes we're
absolutely.
like, I'd really like to remember
Yeah,
it.
no, in hypnosis, they're like, let them daydream and they'll still get this
Oh
and they
yeah.
still will change. Now,
Hmm.
the big thing that I do find is we have to acknowledge, like, we really truly have to go, this is really happening. And there are moments when you will doubt that,
Oh
right? But
yeah.
I do feel like we have to acknowledge this is really happening. And you also have to acknowledge the changes that you've experienced, or it will just, or you'll just keep taking reference points from your old self and sticking it back in your new self, and then you'll have to redo it.
Yeah, and
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's my theory.
I would say I'm a perfect example of that. And that's where I always say people come up with like, oh, it was a coincidence, right? Like I probably had
Yeah.
10,
Reason
20
for that
years
word.
of psychic coincidences until I finally was like, I'm gonna have to admit these are not coincidences anymore because they kept getting stronger and stronger, and to the point where I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And then I would
Yeah,
just blank it out because I didn't want to kind of dive into it or I was scared of it. So yeah, I agree, and that's yeah, but I wasn't. I was also not ready for it. So yeah, but I tell people like there are no coincidences. Everything that happens for a reason, and because it was guided that way.
right.
So yeah, there are no coincidences. Everything that happens
No, I mean,
because it's
don't you
meant to
feel
happen.
like there's a reason for words like synchronicity, coincidence?
Oh yeah.
I just serendipitous. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, duh. Like this
Yeah.
is everything in your life all day, every day needs to have those words in it,
Well,
right?
yeah. And, and I was just talking to someone recently who had a parent who passed away. And we were saying, so many things happen when someone close to us passes, right? And we never invalidate that, right? So if we're like, oh, he came to me in a dream after he passed, or all of these things happened, right before, it's like we give ourselves permission for that and then we forget about it. So if I ask people like, have you ever had a mystical experience? There's not a single person I've ever met who says no. Or if they do, I'm like, I give them a couple prompts. I'm like, has anyone ever, close to you passed away? Right. Like, and they're like, oh, yeah. Right. Because they block it out. But
Mhm.
no one's not had those, but we invalidate them so often. And we're invalidating our own intuition and our own higher self when we do that. So I agree. You do. You have to acknowledge it and accept it. And then the great thing is you start seeing it everywhere because no one doesn't have like an inner voice, right? It might be blocked, but it's always there. And the minute you start validating it and you start being like, oh, yeah, that is what it was, or like that wasn't a coincidence, that was actually me, right? That was me hearing my own higher self. Like it just gets stronger and stronger. But yeah, we
Yeah.
have to validate it. And it's funny, the word that came in when you said that was gratitude because the other thing that is like the highest vibration, and I would say it's like the vibration of love, is
Yeah.
the vibration of gratitude. And
Yeah.
if you can be in that vibration as well, it just brings you to a whole different level, right? If you are like, not only do I acknowledge this, but I have so much gratitude for my own intuition and like this gift that I've been given, that opens you up so much. I can't like
Yeah.
people, I just feel like no one understands or I wouldn't say no
We
one,
talk
but the
about
power
these.
of gratitude is just so enormous.
I mean, we talk about these words, but I have to go, are you actually being the frequency of that?
Yeah.
Are you actually, and one of the words that I love is adoration, right?
Hmm.
Because I feel like, love has these like limiting constructs around it in our reality. And gratitude starts to, they're like, oh, I gotta work a gratitude journal. I mean,
Hmm.
there's like, it has something weird with it, but adoration hasn't been ruined in that way,
Yeah. Well, I
right?
feel like everyone has different words because even the
Yeah.
word love, right? Because I would say it's the frequency of love. A lot of people have baggage around love because of
That's
the
what yeah,
of experiences.
absolutely.
And that's why it's funny. That's why I usually talk about gratitude because I'm like, well,
Mhm.
the closest thing to that is, gratitude.
Mhm.
And even if it's gratitude for yourself. But yeah, it's true. Like everyone has a different
Yeah.
take on these different words because of, all kinds of things. I do
Absolutely.
have see a great comment I just wanted to address in the chat because someone says, how do you understand that you're communicating with the Arcturians, for example, and not lower astral beings? So that's a great question.
Yeah.
Um, and this is why, to me, it's really important to learn really basic energy mastery tools
Yes.
because you do have to be in a space where I always tell people it's the command center. Your sixth chakra, your third eye, is not here in the front of your forehead. It's in the middle of your head. It's your pineal gland. That's where your sixth chakra is. So you have to, first of all, be able to get comfortable and have your attention there, be grounded, have your aura set around you. And then if you ask from that space who you're communicating with, you'll have to get a right answer, right? But it's really important that you learn how to be in that space, how to identify when you're in that space and not in that space, how to be grounded, how to set your aura, like all of those things when you get to that place. But it is, and then you just ask, like, because when you ask from your sixth chakra, it's a place of neutrality, it's a place of non-judgment, it's a place of truth, and it's a place of knowing, right? So it is your clairvoyant center. So you're only going to get the truth there. That's where I read when I do readings, that's where I'm reading from, right? Because I can't get a wrong answer. If I start worrying and like wondering, is this information right? That means I shifted my information to my analyzer in the front of my head, right? And that's not where, when you're wondering or you're worried, that's where you're bringing your attention. So you want it always to be in your six, in the center of your head. And that's where you ask. But again, like you kind of have to have basic understanding of energy mastery.
Yeah,
Like,
which is what you're talking about in your empathic healing program, is from my
yes,
understanding. Well,
yeah.
it's funny that you say that because it's very clear to me that this information is like almost coming behind me and through me.
Hmm.
Because I was like, that is a great question, and I would have answered it totally differently. But I like your answer a little bit better. And the reason I do is because it's very clear to me that it's been the work on the pineal gland that has opened this.
Yep.
And it started like in 1999 in a yoga class when she said, if you want to develop your intuition, start to focus on your third eye.
Hmm.
And then when I worked with Joe Dispenza's work, then it really became okay, we work with this pineal gland to
Yep.
decalcify it. And it very much is, no, that is where it comes from. It's kind of more like the back center of the head. Like if I'm thinking, it's like really like the ticker of my brain.
Exactly. Yeah. I always say
Yeah,
feeling.
that's
I can
cool.
literally feel it
Thank
right
you
in the
for
front of my
that. Oh my gosh,
forehead.
Christine, that's so cool. I love when I'm like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, but that's definitely, and like, the center or the front of your head, I call it your analyzer, is
Yeah, of
important, right? If you're doing math
course.
problems, you're trying to figure out what groceries do I need to make this recipe, right? You need to use that part of your brain. Unfortunately, most people in today's world live their life in their analyzer, right? And that's why we're anxious or worrying. Like if you can go through most of life I call it the command center, the center of your head or your six, it's like you're not as stressed, you have clarity, you have confidence, right? Like it's just like so much easier. And I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge of today's world is so many people are living in their analyzer. And I see because I came from the corporate world and I would leave work sometimes and I would just call it like spinning, right? My mind would be spinning and I'd be like, I have to figure this out. And I'd be like trying to solve a problem here, right? And I'm stressing myself out, and it becomes this really, really kind of toxic cycle. And finally, someone was like, well, go for a walk or something. And I was like, before I learned the kind of the energy work, that was what would do it. And now I get it because when you go out in nature and you're away from devices and you're around a bunch of trees or you're just out and quiet, you naturally go to that place, right? So even
I
if you
think
don't know how
that's
to
step
meditate,
one always, right?
yeah. Yeah. And so I always tell people like you're stressed, either, for some people who are very like type A, I'm like, go for a run. Cause also same thing, right? You're getting out of your head, you're running, you're struggling with your physical body. So I'm like, go for a run, go for a walk in nature, or like do something like breath work that's very physical, but that brings you out of that thinking space, right? But nature, I'm like 100% will get you in that calm space. For some people, if you're living most of your life there, it might take a little longer, right? But I used to go on vacations and I would literally not even be able to decompress until like the fifth day, right? Because I had lived, because especially working in a corporate environment,
Yeah.
man, like to deprogram off of that is tough because everyone is living in their analyzer. And so,
Yeah.
it just need, and don't judge yourself, but it takes time, especially the more time you're spending here, the harder it is to get here. But the more you practice, the easier it gets. So
Yeah,
that's the
no,
one.
I love this. It's funny. I was super depressed at one of the jobs I had before I left corporate.
Yeah.
One of the people said, "You need to go out at lunch and hug a tree."
I know. And they probably said
I,
it as
I
a
was like
joke, but I'm
so
like,
opposed to it at the time. I was
yeah.
like,
Well,
and she's like, I'll come with you. And I'm like,
oh,
oh, that's like, and
oh,
I'm
that's
like,
actually
this is
sounds
a
sweet.
waste of time.
Yeah, I've had people say that to me in a kind of rude, like condescending way, but I would say that's like
No, she was like
exactly,
dead
yeah,
serious. And I
that's
was, and
great.
then, and then I was like, fine, I'm going to humor her because I'd like to be friends with her. And I went out and I hugged the tree. And I tell you, I had a better day after that. Not that
Yeah,
made it a habit for me, but I think it's funny that certain people are know that just innately. And they're like, come do this with me.
yeah,
And you're like,
yeah.
heck no,
Oh, that's beautiful
I'm
that
no tree hugger.
yeah, that she wanted to do that. That's great.
Yeah. So, I think that this is kind of evolving into a beautiful conversation. And I do want to get more into the channeling. And one of the things I'd love to ask them is, you know, for us to even get in, a word edgewise from angels, we have to drop our vigilant system. Have
Mhm.
you ever asked Sirius B what it takes to, or what recommendations that they have for us humans to drop our nervous system and to drop our vigilant system? And I'm wondering, can we ask that and see where that goes?
Yeah, and that's actually a great question because I've never asked them that because I know how to do that on my own, but I'd be curious now to ask them that. So
Yeah.
we can do that. But one other thing I just want to point out, or I want to just open up the conversation around this, is one of the things I've really been focusing on, especially for empaths. And I know we wanted to talk about receiving, but I had another topic that I thought we were going to talk about, which was why empaths attract narcissists and the healing journey that kind of happens
I
with
think
that.
that's it. Well, let me just, I mean, I don't want to call out a speaker, but let me just call you out on that because I think that's a conclusion, that empaths attract narcissists. And the only reason why I say that is because if they're empathic, then they are probably reading the other person's righteousness. And everyone on some level has some level of righteousness. So, I mean, we can talk about this,
Well,
but I don't agree with what you just said in that.
well, I think that might be because you're looking at it as something negative, that narcissists are negative and that experience is negative. And I would say
I
that it
think
actually
everyone has a
isn't.
level of narcissism in them because everyone has this. I'm even doing it right now in a way. I'm
Sure,
fighting to
sure,
be
of
right,
course.
right?
Yeah, and well, I would say it's all on a scale, right? And the reason that I like to talk about it is because and I don't disagree with you, but I think that
Right.
a lot of people believe that, and because of that, it's like that's something that is attracted. And I do think that there's a natural, like it's a polarity thing, right? Because
Let's go in. I'm open to receive.
yeah, yeah, and I do still want to go to we can channel the Syrians about this because this was something that they
Mhm.
actually wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But so the way that I have worked with them and seen this, and because I've done a lot of like really deep trauma healing for people, and this is something that comes up again and again, whether it's someone who has like a narcissistic parent, and again, right, these are labels, right? Not everyone fits into the exact label or whatever, but a lot of people have seen these patterns from either parents or romantic partners and it does create some very deep trauma programming that people have a harder time healing. And so when I look at people, what I do when I do healing for people is I'm looking at a core wound, and we'll look at something like that and see, oh, this is like a really core issue, especially if you have a parent this way or someone else. That's something that I've worked with quite a bit. So that's what I've worked with the Syrians on that. I've done my own healing on that. And so, what I actually see is that it's a path to deep, deep healing and self love. And that's why so many people look at it and there's so much judgment around people who can't get over a relationship or are an empath and who feel like they've attracted that kind of situation. I always say, we look at it as so negative and we feel like it's so painful, but really it's a path to healing. So
Mhm.
that's why I talk about it. And to your point about how everyone kind of has these things, or these, I see like being an empath on a spectrum, and a narcissist is also an empath. But what happens is they go into victimhood instead of kind of taking seniority over the situation. And that's kind of how that dynamic works. So that's what I think is really interesting. And I'm doing kind of a
It's a
workshop on
frequency
that.
match. So a narcissist is an empath.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
they're absolutely super sensitive people, but unfortunately, like they're what they've been taught, and again, this is usually programming, they've been taught to act like a victim around it. So when they're, a
mhm,
victim, they're either lashing out or they're playing the victim because there's, of course, different types of narcissists. Um, and that's what gets really tricky because, both people are trying to heal, and one
yeah,
person, especially usually the person who identifies as an empath, is trying to help them or support them or is thinking like, hey, did I do something wrong? What do I need to do? So that's kind of like ends up being the dynamic. But the tricky part is it's very hard to separate.
yeah.
And that's what I feel like because, yeah, it's that polarity thing. It's, people have such a hard time either reprogramming or leaving these relationships if it's with a parent, right? Like getting over that and kind of like taking ownership. So that's really like what I see as the challenge.
Yeah, Tiffany had a cool comment, and she's like, people are really quick to judge.
Yes.
And I think that, when you judge and label, you also like stick something in a box too.
Oh, yeah.
That can often help the person dealing with it. But I think that if it's also, very egotistical of us to judge somebody in such a way.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think that's very true. I think people kind of overuse the label,
Yeah.
and because everybody, that's just basic psychology today. Everything has to get put in a box.
Right.
So I do caution people around that. But the important thing is like how you feel. So whether or not you
Mhm.
label it or not, if you feel like, hey, I've been in this relationship and I'm having a really, really hard time, it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter if you call them a narcissist or not, right?
Right.
It's like, the point is like you want to heal. And I also like have a lot of empathy for people who are labeled as narcissists, right? Because there's all this like theory too that says, oh, they can't be healed or they can't change. And I don't believe that either, because I think that everyone can reprogram. And so that's the other thing that I find really challenging is people who come to me and they're like, well, everything I read, they say a narcissist can't be healed, they can never change. And I think that and I kind of looked into that, and there's no like real studies on that. That's kind of just what people say. And I think the reason they say that is because they're trying to break that bond and like get people to get over it. But that's not true that narcissist can't be healed. Everyone
Well,
can be
wouldn't
healed
that,
and has the
I
power to
mean, that
heal
just
themselves.
kind of is like screws everything that we do out of the box. Nope, you can't change.
Right.
I mean, we are truly change makers on the planet, and I really think that anybody can heal from anything. And I mean, why are they that way in the first place? They not, I mean, maybe they were born that way from a past life, but
Right.
don't you think that they picked up some habits, constructs, behaviors, entrainments from their parents?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
come on.
Yeah, I mean they are, and that it usually is because of some kind of deep trauma and programming, right?
Yeah.
And it's yeah, sometimes there is like a genetic component as well, right?
Mhm.
That makes someone go into victimhood, and it's certainly like they chose that journey, right? In this lifetime. But my firm belief and what I've seen is we've all in past lives been murderers and been murdered, been rapists
Totally.
and been raped, been narcissists and been empaths. We've all experienced
Right.
all of them. And the reason, the gift I think in being able to see past lives is that you have enormous compassion for people. Like you really can see like, wow, someone came in to learn that lesson and to be the bad guy, right? And that's, they chose that, right? And
Hmm.
especially the people who we feel have really hurt us, right? They made an agreement with us to do that. And on a soul level, no one wants to hurt anyone else, right? But they do that
Uh,
because there were
I don't
lessons
know
to
if
learn.
that's true.
I do think
On
it's
a
true.
soul level, I would say let's hope it's true, but I'm not certain that that is actually true. I do think that there is evil, and
I
you
think that it's evil, but I don't think it's at a soul level. I don't think anyone has evil on a soul level. That's
uh-huh.
what I've seen. But
Okay.
you know, that's my belief. I
Yeah,
do think there is evil, but I don't think it comes from a soul level.
right. Yeah. Tiffany said we come here with programming and we are here to heal it. And yeah, you wouldn't be on this call if you weren't here to heal it. And I think,
Yeah,
it's fun having these conversations, especially these conversations with labels, because I mean, we know like how a narcissist act, and we know that it's like talk about a spectrum, because I think on some level, everyone's on a some sort of spectrum around this because
absolutely.
we
And
have points of view.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
have a belief system and it's probably similar to a lot of other people's, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that are really different. And it might be so different that I would fight to be right for my point of view
sure.
on any level.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love Tiffany said evil is a judgment also. The other side doesn't see
Mm,
anything
I
good or bad.
like that.
So
Thank you.
that's such a great point because and that's why I say when you're in meditation and if you can be in that spot in your command center in the center of your head, you don't see anything as good or bad. And that's
No.
why it's so powerful because you can see someone who's doing something and you can be like, oh, that's the lesson that they're learning, right? They don't mean to be a bad person. And that's what's really hard if you're an empath, right? To see that, because then you're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. And at the same time, you have to protect your boundaries. So the reason I also love kind of like being in that place of non-judgment is I find that that's most powerful to see yourself. Because we certainly all judge everybody, right? No question. It's just like the human condition. But who we're really judging is ourselves. And if you can see yourself with neutrality, that's the greatest gift
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, you actually, we are always so hard on ourselves and we just always like, someone will say, oh, you're so good at that. And we're like, oh, no, 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 I'm not that good at that. Right. When you're in neutrality, you see, actually, I am really good at that. Right. And you
Yeah.
give yourself credit. And that's what I love. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Oh, for so long, I was like, well, everyone's intuitive. Like, what I do isn't a big deal. And
Yeah.
then once I started looking in my space, I was like, wow, I actually am pretty good at this. And I'm going to own
Right?
it, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, again, back to acknowledgement. I feel like that's like people kept saying to me at the beginning of my journey, and I was like, I don't understand what you mean. Of course, I'm acknowledging it, and they like took it into like, well, can you celebrate it? And I thought, okay, now I think I get it a little bit more. And then when I really started saying, wow, damn, you did good, it's like things just kept getting better and better
mhm,
and better and better. And it was the ability to drop and be totally vulnerable and see myself as if somebody else would see me. That was
mhm.
truly the difference for me, was that
Yeah,
and that takes work to drop that vulnerability and stop being like, hey, I'm right.
right.
No, there's this openness that you evolve into. And I do feel like that is timeline leaping for a lot of us
Oh,
when we
definitely.
really like change our identity on
Mhm.
some level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I call that just being curious, but I like how you're describing it
Yeah,
as well.
curious
Yeah,
is
I'm like
good,
just
except
yeah,
curious back in the day used to be like, I'm curious, and then I come to a conclusion,
right, right, right.
right?
Yeah, and it's just being, but
And
I
now
like that.
it's
Yeah,
just
it's like
like,
it's being open and just being like, hey, I wonder why that's happening instead of immediately being like on the defensive.
right. Yeah.
So
I mean, if
yeah,
you're resisting or reacting in any way, then there is something there for you to change.
right, right, absolutely. And Renee had a good question. She said, "Can you clarify what you mean by evil not being on a soul level?" So
Mhm.
first of all, someone else brought up the point like evil is like, everyone would define that differently, first of all, right? So
Yeah.
what one person thinks is evil is not an evil. But what I would say is it's a learned behavior, right?
Mhm.
And then it's also, there and these learned behaviors show up for us to also learn, right? So someone is just like, a mean and negative person around you, right? There's a gift in that because you can see how you react to that and what your response is, and maybe you're, learning boundaries or whatever it is. But that's what I think it's a learned behavior, and it's something
What
that
about, like, are you just talking about humans, or are you
yes,
talking
I
about,
am. I
okay,
am just talking about humans.
okay. Because I think like
I
drift,
mean, yeah, and I know there's different beings who have agendas. I would say they also have, we look at these other beings from other dimensions and we think like, oh, they're so different from us, or they learn behaviors too. They don't, they've also been taken on programming. They
sure,
also are wrong sometimes, right?
yes,
Even, so that, I would say those beings too have taken on some learned behavior, whether they're, power hungry or whatever, we see all kinds of beings that really try to suppress our own intuition, right? I've seen that too. And I would say that that's also learned behavior,
so
because
you
everything came
really
from
think
source, and
true,
source is neutral. So that's why I would say
yeah, I
that.
see what you're saying, like
Yeah.
true source with a big bang of like we of God, we're like the drop of the ocean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah. And also, like, but there is that polarity. And that's why I would say, yeah, there is, light and dark, but one can exist without the other. So, I mean, we could go super deep with this, but like,
well, and just because there's absence of light doesn't mean it's dark either.
right, right.
Yeah, so all right.
Okay.
We've
So
had
I
some
want to get down
dynamic
to the,
conversations. Holy
yeah.
cow. Let's talk a little bit about your program now. I mean, we've talked a lot about being empath.
Mhm.
Um, I still would love to hear what Sirius B has to say about dropping our vigilant system in
Yeah. Yeah.
some
So let's,
ways to
let me
do
give a
that.
quick overview on the
Now,
program, and then and then we can
sounds
do
good. Let
that.
me go ahead and bring, I created a page real fast for you.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's super simple with both the links. But let me go ahead and pull it up so they've got a place to go.
Okay. Awesome.
So you guys, the link is at houthustle.com/Christine. And this is her newest program that is going to be done live on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I love doing live workshops because I feel like first of all, the energy of the people all like elevates and is combined, and it's always like the exact right people who are supposed to be there. So this is a live workshop, and the reason not only that I do live is the group, but also because then we get like real-time learning from whoever I'm channeling. And then I also try to do one-on-one readings if we have time with people in the group. So I know last time we did this, we had a bunch of people who came from your last summit, and it was like fantastic. So the topic of this specific workshop is the path to healing for empaths. So it's about self-love, boundaries, and true freedom. So we talk very much about, like, I teach the tools there, right? So we do 2 hours. So we walk through a bunch of visualizations. I do some channeling. I work with as many people as I can one-on-one, and I intuitively work with those people. So sometimes I can't work with everyone, sometimes I can. And I really let Source guide me of who is meant to kind of like get the healing work. And then there is also an optional upgrade. So you also have the option to book a one-on-one call with me. That's only 150. My regular rate for an hour reading is 300, and I don't offer these at all, except for when I'm doing these summit interviews. So this is the only way you can get that kind of discounted reading with me. It's only 30 minutes, but that's what basically the program is. So you'll learn tons of stuff, even if you don't identify as having a narcissistic, relationship. If you're an empath and you identify with that, this is going to be incredibly healing because all empaths have to learn about boundaries and self-love and kind of like all of the experiences that we have and kind of why we chose this path of being an empath.
Great. This is live. It's August 27th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. But if you can't make it, there will be a recording
Yep.
provided. And if you're seeing this page after that date, I'm sure we can get you the recording if this is something you're interested in.
Oh yeah,
It
definitely.
also says that there's a meditation bundle with this.
Yeah, so what I do is I do a meditation bundle after on the main topics that we cover, and I just make those 5 to 10 minute. There's three,
Okay.
and I always wait until after the event to see what is really important. So for the last one, for example, we had like a grounding visualization. I think there was a heart opening meditation because it was about receiving and something else. So I'll have 3 10-minute meditations that you can listen to forever that are specifically online with whatever we talked about in the workshop.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, the link is houthustle.com/Christine. If you are on the YouTube live stream, you will find it over there in the comments or the caption. You'll also find it on the podcast in the area under show notes. So thank you.
Yeah.
Back,
So
back
do
to
we have
the
time? I
making.
thought for some reason I thought we were going until 10:30, but if we don't have time, then
Yeah, let's take some time. Let's keep going.
okay, awesome. All right. So give me just a second to set up. Wait, I have one crystal I always like to hold.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, there's something going on with the throat chakra today for sure. Okay, so what was the question again that you wanted to ask?
Uh, what is the best way for us humans to drop our vigilance system? Fast.
So describe more what you mean by vigilance system.
When we're thinking in the frontal lobe of our
Oh,
brain.
got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. The fastest way. They said the fastest way is to swim in the ocean. But if you can't do that, because they said it's a combination, it's like multisensory to like have the cold against your body, the salt water, it like affects your taste buds. Like you don't realize all of the things that are impacted when you go into ocean water, the sound of the waves, the vibration. It's like so many different things. If you're not able to go to an ocean, you could visualize it, but you have to use all your five senses, the taste, the sound, the smell, the feeling, all of that. But they're saying, yeah, swimming in the ocean, people don't give enough credit to. That is the number one way. They said, if you want instant clarity, go dive into the ocean. Let me see what else. Listening to music is another big one. They work a lot with healing in with light and sound, and the power of music, especially music that specifically moves you, can be very, very powerful and healing, especially if you can listen to it with headphones. And again, like picking music that like really shifts the energy for you. So anything that makes you feel emotion, that makes you feel connected. Classical music is always great, but they're saying, yeah, like certain people are very open clairaudiently, and people think clairaudience is like kind of always hearing voices, but it a lot of times has to do with the healing power of music. So
Mhm.
listening to music is another big one. And, walking in nature. They're saying anywhere that you can
Wow.
walk in nature where there's not feedback, like not going for a walk where there's a bunch of, freeway traffic or something like that. Although if that's the only option, that's fine. But yeah, taking a walk of at least like 30 minutes being disconnected is another thing. But a lot of times people don't think about the music one. And so
Wow.
they're saying that's like really incredibly powerful. Even better if you can be playing or singing the music, because that gives you another level of like the vibration of your voice, right? The physical, they're saying like it's important to get all of the physical senses involved, right? Like having a physical experience, right? Like playing a cello or singing with your voice, right? And then hearing that, like that's what makes these things powerful is engaging like the physical senses as well as like your taste, your sound, your hearing, your smell, all of those.
Wow, that's beautiful. Can you ask specific questions for like me and the audience, and do something guided on what we need next or anything like that?
Yeah, so we can do a guided meditation.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So if everyone could concentrate on that spot in the center of their head, so it's about 2 inches behind your eyes, and just imagine a beautiful golden ball of energy there. And as you see that golden ball, just imagine it expanding and expanded about the size of a grapefruit. And as you're expanding that, you are pushing out any energy that doesn't belong to you from any people, places, or things. You're just clearing that out. And then once you've done that, you can bring that energy back to about the size of a golf ball and just try to keep your attention there in that space in your command center. If you feel yourself drifting, it's fine. Just gently bring your attention back to that space. And then imagine your aura about 18 inches around you, and just imagine it equally spaced on all sides of you, above you, below your feet, behind you, in front of you. And then coat that aura in what we'll call certainty blue. You can define that blue. I always give it like a medium blue color. And then just imagine your grounding cord. We're going to do something a little bit different. I want you to imagine the earth, and she's sending her grounding cord right up to you. So it's going to be right from the center of the earth. It's going to go right to the base of your first chakra, which is on the base of your spine, and let the earth's energy connect with you and ground you. That's kind of a new way I've been showing people how to ground because it's really helpful, and it gives you a more direct connection to the earth. And just feel your feet on the ground. If your feet are not on the ground, just imagine that they're touching the ground. And then outside your aura, just imagine a magical place that for you is a place of peace and neutrality. So for some people, it might be a beach. For some people, it might be a forest or a mountains. You are going to be in this place by yourself. And it's important to imagine that your feet are on the ground there and you're barefoot. And you're going to imagine whatever you want the earth to feel like. Some of you might be digging your toes into the sand. Some of you might be, on some beautiful grass. So just feel the feeling of that, your feet on the ground. And then feel the air around you shift. Smell the air. If you're smelling the scent of flowers or evergreen or ocean, whatever calls to you, just smell that. And then feel the environment, whether it's the sun on your face, whether it's the wind blowing, whether it's warm or cold, however you'd like it to feel. But feel that on your body. And then listen to the sounds that are around you. It could be birds singing, it could be the ocean waves, it could be the rustle of the wind, it could be whatever you would like to imagine. But the goal is we're really tuning into this with all of our senses. And then just find a beautiful place to sit there. And you can create a place if it doesn't exist. It could be a beautiful lounge chair. It could be a tree stump. It could be a really comfortable place in the sand. You get to decide exactly what this place is. So find that place. And then finally, just feel like the taste of the place. And I know that sounds silly, but you're taking in the smells. But imagine just sitting there, taking a deep breath, and then just tuning into like what it tastes like. Whether that's just the taste in your mouth, or you take a sip of water, or you have another beautiful drink by your side and you're taking a sip of it. And again, we're just engaging all of the senses in this place. Now, as you're sitting in this beautiful place in whatever, area you've chosen, just again, imagine in this place, you're bringing your attention to the center of your head, to that command center, to our pineal gland. And then you're just imagining you're sitting there, you have your knowing, you're taking a few deep breaths. And then I want you to take this visual, exactly how you're feeling now, and I want you to put it in a beautiful golden rose. So just imagine you took all of this energy here of how you felt in all of your different senses, and you're putting this in this beautiful golden rose. And this golden rose is going to be available to you anytime once we leave this meditation. And all you're going to have to do is call on this rose and gently tap this rose to your crown, to your seventh chakra. And as you tap it, the energy of all of this place will fill up your body all the way down from your crown to the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes. So you have access to it anytime. And it's always going to be right outside your aura. So just take a deep breath. And we're going to come back into our bodies. So just feel your feet on the ground. And slowly open your eyes. And what I like to do is bend forward at the waist and balance, or if you're not able to do that, to tip your head forward and balance.
Mm.
That just helps you balance your energy. And now you always have access to this place with this beautiful golden rose.
Wow. Wow, that was so fast and that was so powerful. Thank you.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think
Yeah.
that. When I'm in meditation, I have no sense of time. So I was like, God, that seemed really long to me. But um,
Yeah, my gosh. I was like, I feel like I just totally got reset a little bit.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that they've been showing me that more recently that you can take that rose and just tap on your seventh and fill your body. So I always just like have this like kind of rose tucked away in my, right outside my aura so I can access it at any time. Uh,
Yeah.
so Joe said, I have this issue being in nature at the moment, 15 minutes in the sun and I'm overheated. Okay, I do supplements the doctors say out of the sun. I think it's fine to be out of the sun. And I would say, like, find a place where you do feel comfortable because you don't have to be in the sun or in, there's a lot of beautiful, like, I mean, I live in Northern California, so there's a lot of places that don't have sun here, right? Underneath the trees, like over by the mountains. But, if you can, and I don't know where you live, it sounds like maybe you live in a really sunny area, but finding like a shady place in nature, like, there's so many places like that. And for you, it's so funny. I was just coming to the idea of like, visualizing a cave, like a beautiful, like sea cave, right? So you can
Mhm.
imagine something like that. Um, Joe, where are you located?
Houston,
Oh, Houston.
the
Yeah.
United
Oh,
States.
it's hot there. I used to live in Dallas. Yeah, it is hot. There's beautiful um like caves and stuff there. But yeah, you could certainly be in a like I would visualize something in nature that's not in the sun. And yeah, if the doctors say stay out of the sun, then I get that. Especially well, the heat there is just so hot with the humidity. So I think, I know it gets cooler there in the winter, so maybe just in the summertime or, travel to a cooler place. Um, could the solar codes just be overwhelming for people experiencing this? Yes and no. I think, well, first of all, Houston is a particularly hot place in the summer. Um, but I think the solar codes, like I think they're very powerful. So, that I think everyone can take in the sun, but it is sometimes in some places it's hard to be in the direct sun and you just have to acclimate. Yeah, you can move if you're able. It's funny where I live, a lot of people from Texas come to Northern California in the summers. We see so
Wow,
many people who like come to Monterey or like that whole area and like have whole, yeah, summer homes because yeah, it's very cool here. So,
great. Christine, any last words?
um, hold on, let me just tune back in because the Syrians are still very much in my space because I'm feeling very elevated. So again, they're showing to always come back to this place of gratitude in your fourth chakra, whether you're receiving as an empath, and you want to focus on that energy of receiving and giving, or you're any type of empath who's working on boundaries. The easiest way to elevate your vibration when you're in your fourth chakra is to tune into that element of gratitude, and it can be, and they're saying like to pick three very simple things. It could be the sun is shining, I am breathing, I have, a beautiful home, or it can be more extensive things, but picking like, these very basic things that we're grateful for as humans. And, whatever you can be grateful for in that very moment is the easiest way in like, a few moments to raise your vibration and to be in that energy of gratitude.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Christine, thank you so much. Again, the offer you can find at houthustle.com/Christine. And with that, we will see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you, Christine. That was,
Yeah, it was so wonderful. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody here for
thank you.
contributing to the energy.
I'm going to unpin you and I have just a couple announcements. If I can find there you go. Okay, there you go. Just a couple announcements. We have a live event coming up November 7th, 8th, and 9th. There are more details on that early bird page. You can find it at houthustle.com/early bird. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. We love having new subscribers. We'd also love to hear some of your comments about the show. So if you're over there and you just feel called to comment, please do. And lastly, I just want you to really enjoy your day. I mean, I feel like sometimes we just leave this call and we dump a bunch of announcements on you. But I think that today I just want to say, go live your life, enjoy your day. We'll see you on Thursday with Lisa Barnett. Please send Leonka and her grandma a little love and energy. I hope to have her back very soon. And Mystique Society is next Wednesday. So with that said, I will see you on Thursday. You have a great weekend. Last thing that I did almost forget. No Dragon timeline this month. I'm starting up a new 7 series on the first Friday in September. So go ahead and just take a little break with me and listen to the voyages that you've had if you've been a Growth Day subscriber. I just sent out all 7 yesterday. If you can't find them, let me know. If you want the Dragon Timeline Voyage series, I have them on sale through the 7th, which is Thursday, and you can get half off of them. The code is on the page. You can find that in the email, but it's houthustle.com/dragon-timelines with an S. And you can see the code on that page, so you can get half off if you are a subscriber, but you got to do it quick because it ends on the 7th. I will see you on Thursday. Bye, everyone.